Right, welcome to the deadline stream. My name is Tom. Welcome to everyone who's already sat in here. Got 100 people in here already. Flipping heck, you guys are eager beavers. Yeah, so let's get straight into it. These are the three teams I've got open at the moment. Poll's open. Who do you think is going to be getting on poll? Is the poll. But yeah, let's go straight into my team one. This is kind of where I'm at the moment. Kind of where I'm at. I'm still slightly unsure. Good morning, Michael. By the way, slightly unsure about these final two slots here, but I'm leaning towards the two that I've just had in there anyway. I think I'm pretty set on this, to be honest. Like, let's just kill the stream right now. No, I'm only joking. I've still kind of undecided. What I am decided on is these other slots though: Red Bull and Aston Martin, Perez, Verstappen, Alonso. I think, where are we? I think they're definitely locks. Obviously, there's the risk of DNFing with this team because I'm tripling up on all of Red Bull, all of Aston Martin. The DNF factor is definitely real. The DNF fear is within me. But there's so much potential with this team. There's so much potential. You can't have Stroll. He will not perform. Well, I don't know about that. He will lose position. Oh, well, straight away, you've interrupted me there, Mr. Phillip. I don't think he will. When we look at this, let's have a look. Last season, I'll look at my spreadsheet from last year. When we look down at points from positions gained, look at Lance Stroll down here. This obviously was a slightly different rule set where you could get 2 points per positions gained. But still, Stroll was head and shoulders above the entire grid for positions gained last year. So I think you're wrong in saying that he's going to drop back, and he's in a much better car this year as well. So yes, he's probably not going to have quite so many positions gained because he's likely to be starting higher up the grid anyway. But I do think that Lance Stroll is still a good pick. And obviously there's this DNF fear, the fear that Lance Stroll and his dodgy wrists aren't going to last the Grand Prix, and I do have that fear. But I think the fact that he's only 7.5 million, Aston Martin look like either the best, second best, and at worst third best team on the grid. At 7.5 million, I think the fact that you can increase your budget of Lance Stroll, as long as he does well, I think that kind of outweighs the risk of a DNF. By the way, if you can hear some shouting in the background, my 2-year-old is currently not napping when she's supposed to be napping, so sorry about that. But yeah, I'm going to have a quick look at the chat, see what's going on. Best budget driver under 5 million. This is something I've been sort of toiling over all week, basically, since the prices were released. Been up and down. I've gone from Guan Yu Zhou to Hulkenberg, tempted by Sargent. It's just these. I think the best three under this 5 million bracket is Guan Yu Zhou, Hulkenberg, and Sargent. I think Logan Sargent is that safe pick where he'll probably qualify P19, P20, and sort of sit there, and if anyone DNFs ahead of him, he'll just pick up a couple of points. The ceiling on Logan Sargent is super low, but he's also probably a much lower risk of DNFing, and the DNFs at minus 20 means it's much more of a risk going for someone like Guan Yu Zhou, who I currently have in my team, because he's much more likely to DNF because he's going to be in the thick of the action. Logan Sargent starting at P20 is probably not going to get caught up in any collisions going into turn one, whereas Guan Yu Zhou, who's likely to start in that, I don't know, rough estimate P9, P10, P11. In fact, we can have a look at the results from, where are we, Bahrain. If we go down, I got all the results from FP1, FP2, FP3. If anyone hasn't seen them, I've also ranked them according to their average position in practice, because my normal viewers will see that I have the hypothetical qualifying. So I have this hypothetical qualifying thing every race, and it kind of ranks the drivers according to how they've performed in practice. So yeah, I think you can see Guan Yu Zhou here is in P10. There's obviously a much bigger DNF risk, I would say, going into turn one, or at least the first lap, than there is for someone down here like Logan Sargent, who's likely to start the race in around that P18, P19. And Logan Sargent is that kind of unexciting, safe pick that you can go for. And then you've also got the likes of Hulkenberg. Haas are a little bit unpredictable, not entirely convinced by their race pace. So we could see them qualify quite well and then drop back through the race. It's kind of hard to tell, but yeah, as usual, I've spent absolutely ages answering one question in the chat, and I'm sorry. I'm going to try and keep a bit more attention on the chat. There's just quite a lot going on here. So Stroll will be a liability again this year. So there's a lot of hate on Stroll. There's a lot of hate in Stroll in the chat. I'm not sure about that. What else we got? Hey, how you doing? Greetings from Greece. Yeah, Forza Ferrari. Yeah, very nice. I'm sure we got quite a lot of Ferrari fans in here. There's a little bit of chat about the chip usage as well. I would say the only chip I would really consider for this particular race is the no negative chip, because I'm kind of all in on Red Bull and Aston Martin, and I have deliberated whether to use the no negative chip, but I think it will come in handy further down the line, because let's face it, if Red Bull and Aston Martin are the best teams at the moment, and if Aston Martin in particular can keep up with Red Bull, or perhaps even knock them off the top spot later on in the season, for the rest of the season we could see our teams revolving around Red Bull, Aston Martin. So I think there'll be an opportunity further down the line to use a no negative chip on like a wet race or a sprint race where there's higher risk of DNF. So obviously it's going to hurt us big time if we go for a team like this and we get a DNF. If Stroll gets DNF'd and Max Verstappen, for example, then we're really in the gutter for a point this week, and that's the risk we have to accept when we go into this deadline. But I think with regards to chips, there will be better opportunities further down the line. So I'm personally not going to use that chip, because we could still have this team or something similar to that come the first sprint race in Baku, and maybe you want to use the no negative chip around Baku, which is slightly more of a high risk circuit than the likes of Bahrain. I think Bahrain is a pretty safe circuit in general. It's quite a lot of runoff space. The track's quite wide in places. There's not really too much danger with Bahrain, and I think something like the no negative chip I'd rather use on a more dangerous track. Something like the next race, for example, in Jeddah. We could have, if we go in. This is another example of when to use that chip. We go into Jeddah straight after this, the Saudi Arabia race, with a team like this. We're in the same situation as we are now. So why use a no negative chip now when we're in this kind of relatively safe Bahrain track, when we're about to go into Saudi Arabia, which is the last couple of years kind of DNF central? So we might want to save that chip for next week. And I don't think any of the other chips are particularly useful at this stage. So yeah, with regards to chips, those are my thoughts and feelings on that at the moment. Let's have a quick look at the poll. Everyone's going for Verstappen. No one's even like touching Perez and Leclerc. I did also consider putting Hamilton on there, because I think he's got a really good record around Bahrain. Just the Mercedes just isn't quite. It's just not quite hitting the mark, is it? So yeah, everyone's going for Verstappen. I was also considering the possibility. This is a little bit left field, but I was considering the possibility of putting the DRS boost on Fernando Alonso. For a couple of reasons. Obviously, because he clearly looks like he's fighting for pole, so why not go for it? He's in a reliable car. The Aston Martin in general, particularly last year anyway, had really good reliability. And if he does win the race, or even if he just like podiums, he's going to get lots of points. He's going to score similarly to Max Verstappen. But if Fernando Alonso does get a podium or win the race, which is completely within the realms of possibility, I'm almost certain he's going to get driver of the day vote. There's just no way he's not going to get driver of the day vote. Whereas if Max Verstappen wins, I can still see Fernando Alonso potentially getting driver of the day. So I don't know. I am a little bit tempted just to go a little bit left field and go kind of all in on the Spanish maestro. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys sticking to the safe bet of Max Verstappen? There is that little bit of a daredevil in me as a fantasy manager that just wants to try something a little bit different. And I don't think this is a particularly dangerous thing to do. I think in general the Red Bulls will probably still be better. But say Max Verstappen does win, and Fernando Alonso only comes like second or third, with the driver of the day, which I expect him to get, let's face it, he could probably still go on par or even slightly exceed Max Verstappen's points. So it's not completely stupid to put the DRS boost on Fernando Alonso. What do you guys think? I'd be interested to know. In fact, let's end this poll. Should we set up another poll? Because I think it's pretty clear that you guys think that Verstappen is the one that's going to get pole. Let's start up another poll, shall we? Let's say who to DRS boost, because I think it's an interesting thought. Oops, can't spell Max. That's fantastic. There we go. I think the poll should be up. Yeah, based on what I've just said, what do you think? Do you think that going for Fernando Alonso is a sensible option? I don't know. Could we also see the return of Hackerman to affect the driver of the day stats and just like randomly give driver of the day to Yuki Tsunoda or something? No offense, Yuki, you were just there on my screen, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Let's see what we're voting for. Going for Max, yeah. I think everyone wants to play it safe. Everyone wants to play the safe, known quantity in Max Verstappen, which is probably sensible. But there is a little bit of a daredevil in me that just wants to go Fernando Alonso. Speaking of daredevil, I don't actually have the time up on my screens anywhere. What is the time? 10 past 2. I've got to keep this. Bear this in mind. I don't want to randomly miss the deadline. Although that said, my team is kind of set at the moment. So if the deadline passes, this is it, and I think I'm kind of happy on this. Let's just have a quick look at the other chat questions because there's just so much going on. DMG, welcome to the chat. I love to go Red Bull Mercedes as constructors, but means having weaker drivers. What do you think? Yeah, I mean, I haven't overly considered Mercedes. I've been so hot on the Aston Martins. So should we have a quick look at what might look like with Mercedes as a? I mean, who would you probably have to drop Perez. Let's shove Mercedes in there. Yeah, so straight away you can't have two budgets. No, you can't get away with another couple of budgets. Ooh, scrolled all the way down there. You'd chuck in Sargent. You still can't afford anyone. Like who you cut in there? You'd have to. Can we? Keep scrolling down. You'd have to go like. You can't even afford. You can't get away with that. You can't get Verstappen and Alonso in there, can you? And you can't really not have Fernando Alonso in your team. So does that mean you're going to cut Verstappen? Is that what you're saying? I just don't see it. To be honest, just don't see it. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's go back because I don't want to accidentally save that. 48 minutes. There we go. I keep this screen up, and then we can keep an eye on the time there as long as that automatically updates. But yeah, I think Mercedes, they look kind of they've been hit and miss. There's lots of negativity coming out of them. They are a reliable car though. You're not going to get very many DNS out of them, and they are kind of that steady. They don't qualify particularly well, and they gain a couple of positions, but with the price points the way they are, I just think that having Mercedes in there is just a bit, I don't know. And to put all your chips on Mercedes after FP3 when it's not even really representative of the conditions during qualifying and the race. I will say one thing though, that Lewis Hamilton is an absolute boss around Bahrain. His record around Bahrain, I don't know, I can't remember exactly the record off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he's like podiumed like every year for the last however many 6-7 years or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact details, but I know Lewis Hamilton is an absolute boss around Bahrain. So it's not crazy to go with Mercedes, I would say. What else we got? Let's have a look at where's the poll going? So it's about 1/5 of you are going for the DRS boost on Alonso potential. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really kind of torn on DRS boost. I think if I want to be completely safe and boring, which is probably the best way to score points, then I think Max Verstappen is probably just the best bet. We could see Red Bull just pull out the bag like they've done so many times last season. They just, even when they didn't look quite that great and everything, Max Verstappen just comes along, smashes everyone out the park by a couple of attempts, and then dominates the race. We could just see that again, and then he might get the driver of the day anyway, and then Alonso comes second, doesn't get the driver of the day, and I just feel stupid. So I don't know. There's a strong argument for and against switching the DRS boost from Verstappen to Alonso, but I think that's kind of my final decision. I think I am pretty set on this team, to be honest. I think I'm set on it, but oh, there you go. There goes my daughter again. She's off screaming. Don't worry, she's not completely by herself. Mum is around. Oh, thank you very much, Saif. Love the content. What team and driver do you support? Well, this is a tricky question because I don't. This is going to come across as like a real wishy-washy answer, but I don't really support anyone. This is such a rubbish answer, but I just really love Formula One and the drama of it all. And I have a couple of drivers that I kind of like. I suppose, I mean, Fernando Alonso's always been kind of a favourite for me. Although when I first started watching F1 back in, I think it was 2007, I want to say, whenever Lewis Hamilton first started racing F1, that's what Lewis is the one that got me into F1 in the first place. And his rivalry with Fernando Alonso, I straight away hated Fernando Alonso because it's just the Fernando Alonso just doesn't like Lewis Hamilton, and I supported Lewis Hamilton back then, and so yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. I don't really know who I support. Who do I support? I like Alex Albon. I think he's a good lad. He's such a nice guy, and he's very genuine, and he's a really good racing driver as well. I think it's a shame he's in a Williams, to be honest. I think he'd do a lot better, but he does get the best out of that Williams. I do like Alex quite a lot. I like Valtteri. I really like Valtteri, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a set favourite, I guess. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a rubbish answer, but yeah. What else we got in here? I'm just going to read the chat quickly. If anyone's got any questions, now's the time because we're running out of time for the deadline. Extra DRS boost on Max. I've already touched on the chips use, Robbie. I'm not going to be using any chips on this race. The extra DRS boost, there's already quite a big risk in DNF factor of Max Verstappen this race. I've effectively got 3 Max Verstappens in my team by having Red Bull, Max Verstappen, and then double Max Verstappen. If I then triple Max Verstappen, that's 4 Max Verstappens in my team, and I'd rather use that on like a sprint race further down the line in the calendar. So yeah, for me, extra DRS boost is a no-no. I mean, it looks great if you want to like do it. It pays off, and you're like #1 global, which is probably not going to happen. Let's face it, someone's got to be there, I suppose. But I think in general, I wouldn't be touching the chips. Yeah. Red Bull, Ferrari, one. Not sure what's going on there. Would you consider Gasly over Stroll? Yeah, I mean, like I say, these are the 2 slots which I'm not convinced by. You could have Gasly, and then you'd have to drop down. You'd have to lose Guan Yu Zhou because you're 0.1 out, and then you probably end up with Hulkenberg, or maybe you want to play ultra safe and go Logan Sargent. I think Hulkenberg would be a better option for overtakes, but liable to drop him back from qualifying positions. So it's tough. I don't know. Hulkenberg or Sargent, it kind of who you want to go there on your gut feeling. But for sure, I could definitely see Pierre Gasly. I think he did quite well. Let's throw it back to the spreadsheet again quickly. Pierre Gasly sort of averaged around P11, so we could see Pierre Gasly sort of just about sneak into Q3, get a couple of points. But then what's he going to do from there? Is he going to push through and overtake the Mercedes, the Astons, the Red Bulls, the Ferraris? He's probably not going to push much further up, and he's just going to kind of sit there and finish on like 6 or 7 points for the entire weekend. So Pierre Gasly isn't that exciting, but then I don't know. Yeah, so I think Stroll's definitely got a high ceiling. If we're looking at him qualifying in that sort of, I would guess, P5 to P7 region, then I think Lance Stroll is definitely just probably a better option. Obviously, like I said, there is the DNF fear, but let's ride with the punches. And I guess, like I say, if I'm going with the team that I'm currently set on, then I just have to accept that a DNF is going to really hurt. I think that's going to be something that we have to kind of come to terms with throughout the season. The DNFs are going to be a much bigger factor this year, especially with how the point scoring system has changed. And drivers in general are getting fewer points. So not only are drivers getting fewer points, but the DNFs are also more painful. So taking DNFs into account is going to be a much bigger factor this year. Last year it was only -10. It wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't enjoyable getting a DNF for sure. Flashbacks to Silverstone turn 1 when 3 of my assets were wiped out in turn 1, but there we go. I think the DNFs are definitely going to be a big factor this season. So I think, yeah, having said that, I'm going to triple up on Red Bull and Aston Martin, but yeah, let's have another look at the chat, see what's going on. Thoughts on Ferrari heavy team? Yeah, I don't know. I think Ferraris will be alright. I think they'll be fine in qualifying. I'd anticipate them to get at least second row. I think Leclerc, Sainz looks like he's struggled slightly, but I think Leclerc, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in and around the fight for pole even. I think, he's been quoted as saying that he made a couple of mistakes on his final run in Q3. What was his Q3 time? We were 1:32.6, so he's about 0.3 off Fernando and Max Verstappen. So I think that he can make that time up, especially when they nail in the setup. I think the Ferrari, particularly Charles Leclerc, could be a good option, and that's another option I've been dabbling around with. We could if we got rid of these guys, let's put Charles Leclerc back in there, and that gives us a little bit more money to slap in Guan Yu Zhou. You could go with a team like this if you didn't fancy. This is another way to sidestep the DNF fear, I guess, if you like. I just think it's got a slightly lower ceiling. So, it's going to be like I said, the season's going to be a constant weighing up of, do we fear the DNF or do we try and go for the points? Like, do you want to try and avoid negative points or do you want to try and gain positive points? Because you can't necessarily have both. So I think that's kind of the decision that we all have to make. And at the moment, I don't really know if there's a really right or wrong answer. I think we need to kind of have a couple of races and see how the points kind of work out to get a good feeling of going forward of where that might be. But for me, I think I'm still kind of off the Ferrari build and going back to what we had here. Where is my man Sergio? There he is, Uncle Sergio. He's back in there. So yeah, this is a team I think I'm going for, but that DNF factor, man, it's really, really nagging at me. But I do think that this is the way to go in terms of the point ceiling and also the budget increase. I think as long as the Aston Martins have a reasonable race, which they should do, then the budget, again, we don't know what the hell is going on with the prices because F1 haven't really told us. But we could see a massive hike in price for the Aston Martin assets. So just having them in your team and not having to worry about it If you don't have these Aston Martin, if you don't have these Aston Martin assets in your team from the get-go, you're going to be sort of making the early substitutions to try and ram them in there to get the value up there. And I'd rather just get the value, get a bit of a head start on anyone that doesn't own them. And one thing I've noticed as well, Lance Stroll, he's only owned by 11%. Like, you look at that around everyone else around here, 24%, 21%, 14%, 29, 27. Lance Stroll is a lowly 11%. I think it's probably because most people won't double up on Aston Martin. They see Fernando Alonso in the limelight and they've gone for him. But I think Lance Stroll being quite lowly owned, if he does do well, that's another kind of boon. And I know we shouldn't really be looking at ownership kind of in general. We just want to maximise the points regardless of ownership. But I do think it's a nice boon for anyone who does own Lance Stroll, as long as he does well. Obviously, if he DNFs, then you're getting penalised big time. But at the end of the day, anyone can DNF. But I do think only 11% owned, that means that Lance Stroll is going to boost you up the rankings ahead of people that have got the likes of Valtteri Bottas, Piastri, or whatever. Let's see what else is going on in the chat, because I'm losing track of everything that's going on here. So many questions. How do I answer any of these? This is my team. I'm a bit scared of DNF. Yeah, Lorenzo, I share your fears. Like I say, you just kind of have to, if you're going to go with this team, you have to just accept that a DNF is going to hurt. But at the same time, if you change your team, you try and avoid the DNF by spreading your bets a little bit, you're just increasing the chance of DNFing for someone else. So if I avoided Lance Stroll and went with Bottas, for example, I'm still getting points from Lance Stroll if he DNFs from the Aston Martin, and then there's also the extra risk now that if Bottas does poorly and DNFs, then I've got that risk as well. Yeah, the only real penalty is if you get kind of triple the punishment, I guess, by doing this. Well, double the punishment. Why not consider Sainz? Because I have considered Sainz, to be honest, but he's not bringing that impressive during the practice sessions. Don't really know what happened to him in FP1, FP2. Like, he was P20, I don't know what happened there. I know he had that spin. Carlos Sainz in P14 as well here. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know why my daughter is not napping, but that's life as a dad, I'm afraid. I think overall Carlos Sainz is not particularly exciting. I think for that similar price, Sergio Perez is just clearly a better option. I think the Red Bulls just look stronger. Perez is only a fraction of the more price. I know you can upgrade someone like Guan Yu Zhou probably if you go with Sainz instead, but I think in general, I think Perez is just a better option at that price. Are you not scared of Stroll? I mean, I've just spent like 20 odd minutes talking about how scared I am of Stroll, but it doesn't stop me from picking him. No negative chip. So we're getting some of the same questions. Maybe people are just joining in late. I'm not using a no negative chip. I think it's tempting, but I think, like I said, we're going to have the similar sort of teams through the season, and there'll be better opportunities down the line where it's a higher risk race. I'm not using any chips in this race. That doesn't mean you don't have to. You can do whatever you want. It's your teams. These are just my thoughts. You don't have to do what I say. Do you think Stroll can survive a whole race? Yeah, more Lance Stroll fear in the chat. I fully get you. And to be honest, I mentioned this in a video like a week ago. I was a bit worried about Lance Stroll coming back. I was kind of hoping Felipe Drugovich would just be replace him, just because Felipe Drugovich, he's done well in testing. He's the F2 champ. I trust him despite him being like a rookie. But we've seen like De Vries come into Monza last year as a rookie and just do really well. He scored points on his debut. So there's no reason why Drugovich couldn't come in and do a good job. But obviously Lance Stroll has gone in there super determined. I will say he was actually holding the wheel properly in FP3 today, as opposed to yesterday where he was hooking it over. But yeah, there is definitely that fear that Lance Stroll won't last the 57 laps. But it's a risk I'm willing to take, and that's what you need to ask yourself as well. Are you willing to take that risk? Because like I say, you have your own team, your own mind. You can do what you want, and I think I'm kind of not overly happy, but happy enough to take that risk. What else we got in the chat? What's going on? You think Hulkenberg has more chances to get to Q3 than Guan Yu Zhou? Possibly. I think Hulkenberg's 1 lap pace in FP2 yesterday was really impressive. But that doesn't, it means he might scrape a point or two. When you look at the point scoring system, you just get a point or two coming like 9 or 10. But then the race pace is a slight concern. You might drop back, and then you just end up losing the points that you gained, and he's going to end up with like 0 points. So yeah, I'm not completely sold on that. But then I'm not completely sold on Guan Yu Zhou. I don't think there's any particularly great option. I think all the budget guys have been really heavily hit by the point scoring system overhaul. It's just very few opportunities for these cheap guys to score points. which is why I'm also kind of tempted to just like forget Guan Yu Zhou and go Logan Sargent. Like, is it worth risking DNF, a high risk of DNF for Guan Yu Zhou, for the sake of, say, 4 or 5 points, when Logan Sargent is probably less likely to DNF and score maybe 1 or 2 points? Like, is it worth the risk? I don't know. Maybe Logan Sargent is the way forward. It does look quite nice with the blue background as well. I don't know. What do you guys think? Logan Sargent? Because he's been in my mind all morning in a non-weird way. That he might just be the best budget option because the budget options are just so bad. But then, I don't know. I feel like Guan Yu Zhou's just got that bit more ceiling. So again, it comes to that DNF. The DNF factor again. I just don't know. It's really hard to tell. You know, -20 for the DNF is a lot. And also, if you go the Logan Sargent route, and what happens if he does DNF? Like, I think it's less likely he'll DNF, but I think Logan Sargent could still be a good option. I'm still also torn on the DRS booster on Alonso. I think it's a bit of a, I don't know, it's not super secure. I think it might be a bit of a joke. Oh, what's the time? 25 past. Right, I've still got time to mull things over. Let's come back out so you can see my team again. I will say one other thing as well. Lando Norris impressed me as well. Has anyone picked up on Lando Norris? The problem is his price point, 11.2 million, is really, it's really awkward. You can't really squeeze him into our structures. You know, if you're going with Red Bull and Aston Martin and Verstappen and Alonso, Lando Norris just doesn't really fit in there, to be honest, because then you're going to end up with, you can't get Perez in, you're going to have to go Lando Norris and Gasly and someone or other, I don't know. But Lando Norris, you know, popping up in P7, we go to the quality predictor from last year and we see Lando Norris here. He's very accurate when he goes from practice to qualifying. We can see anyone in the green section here, 1.8 difference from the average delta from the hypothetical from the practice sessions to the qualifying. So Lando Norris and indeed Ricciardo last season, the McLaren itself is a very reliable car going from practice into qualifying, and Lando Norris down there in P7, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, despite McLaren's misgivings and troubles over the last couple of weeks, I would not be surprised if Lando Norris is such a good driver. I would not be surprised to see him qualify. Just stick that McLaren where it doesn't, you know, has no right in being at the moment. So yeah, Lando Norris is definitely an interesting one. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But for me personally, he doesn't fit the team structure with the pricing. Like I said, I'd probably have to drop down Sergio Perez, and it's just not worth it. Perez should definitely comfortably outscore Norris. Right, what else is going on in the chat? Thoughts on Piastri? Yeah, for similar reasons. I think the McLaren, it doesn't look great. I mean, again, if you wanna avoid the Lance Stroll DNF factor, you could definitely put Piastri in there instead. It gives you a million to play around with, which you can't really do much with, to be honest. But I think Piastri is kind of fine. But again, it's all about weighing up. What sort of fantasy manager are you? Trying to hit the ceiling? Are you trying to avoid the floor? Are you trying to go down the middle? Me personally, I normally try and be a very balanced fantasy manager. But on this occasion, I think we're going to have to adapt, and I'm going to have to go out of my comfort zone and, you know, and put someone like Lance Stroll in there and just go for the triple up, because I think it's optimal. But that, you know, with hindsight, you know, in 24 hours time, when Lance Stroll, Sergio Perez and Alonso are in the wall, I'm just like, ugh, but we just don't have that hindsight. So yeah, I think that's kind of covers my thoughts on that. Hey Tom, what do you think about Red Bull, Ferrari, Verstappen, Alonso, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Sargent? Yeah, it's fine. I mean, that's kind of the build. If we go back, you see this build over here on the right hand side. Red Bull, Ferrari, who else was in there? Verstappen, Alonso. Yeah, so wait, what is that? Hulkenberg, Sargent. Oh, can you actually get? Oh yeah, I got 2.3 million spare there. So if we get rid of Guan Yu Zhou, you can actually get. Oops, that's not what I wanted to click on. You can actually get Oscar Piastri in there. So this is the team that you're asking me, right? Yeah, I mean, it's basically the team that I just had there as my third option. I think it's a perfectly viable option. It also kind of spreads the risk on the DNF. You know, if you go with a team like this and Aston Martin flop, they DNF or whatever, then a team like this is going to secure you a really good rank to get the season going. Yeah, it's completely weighing up the risk and reward, and at the moment I've got my eyes set on the glittering golden carrot of the triple up on Red Bull and Aston Martin. So where are we? Bottas or Stroll? I mean, yeah, I think I've spoken about Stroll enough, and I've given my thoughts and opinions on it quite enough. For me personally, I think I'm going for Stroll, and I have weighed up the possibility of going for Bottas instead. That would also, yeah, I mean, you could you could just do that, and it kind of spreads the spreads the DNF factor around a little bit. But I still think I want to try and, this is so unlike me, I want to try and spike the ceiling on this team. I think this team's got such a good ceiling, and it goes against my normal method of playing fantasy. I normally try and make it much more balanced, steady ship, go for that reliability, don't do anything outlandish. This is a little bit outlandish, especially for anyone who watched my team selections through last season will know I'm much more of a safe manager in general, and I'm quite inclined on the here and there to take a bit of a punt. But this is like, I don't know if you can call this a punt. I don't think this is a punt. I think it's just high risk, high reward, and you kind of have to accept the penalty that comes alongside that. Oh, thank you very much. Just noticed Cristiante. Thank you for the euro. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions to ask, then I'll try and ask. Oh, you have already asked the question. Okay, fair enough. What do you think of autopilot and DRS boost Alonso? That's something I haven't considered. That's a good question. Autopilot, DRS boost Alonso. Is that a good? You throw me there. That's one thing I haven't considered, I have to say. Because I was very tempted with Fernando Alonso, and then if Max Verstappen outscores him, you could just get Verstappen's points anyway. I mean, that does use up kind of an important chip. You only get 6 chips across the 23 races, and maybe you want to use autopilot chip further down the line again when there's like more risk. I don't know. I don't know if I'm putting too much emphasis on the risk factor and trying to negate the risk factor down the line with the autopilot kind of chip. I think, to be honest, although that's quite a nice fancy move, Cristiante, I think it's kind of a bit of a luxury move, and I don't think it's necessarily optimal, because I would anticipate Verstappen and Alonso to score kind of similarly anyway. So if you're going to go with Fernando Alonso as the DRS booster, you're kind of giving up, you're kind of accepting that Max Verstappen might outscore him by a few points, and so be it. As long as they finish where we expect them to, which is hopefully like P1 and P2 for our teams, then the point scoring difference wouldn't be too much different anyway. So yeah, although nice idea, and you managed to completely throw me off for a second, I personally haven't thought about it for a couple of seconds. I'm not going to be doing that. But yeah, good idea, and I wouldn't fault anyone to go for that. Another donation, thank you, Dersibo. Again, if you've got a question, I'll try and prioritize answering it, because it's hard to keep up with the chat here. Sorry. Only one wild card, yep. But there is other chips available. There are other chips, so you can do the limitless perk, which is going to be really exciting, where you can just pack in as many drivers as you can. Let's have a look at what the limitless perk might look like. We might leave Fernando Alonso in there, to be honest, but it's not even going to let me do it, is it? Because I've not activated it. And don't activate your chip. Don't activate your chips, because there's no going back. I've already seen people on Twitter and that saying that they are stuck with whatever chip. It does say in the rules, somewhere in the small print, once you activate a chip, you cannot cancel it. So don't accidentally use a chip, because there's no going back like there was last year. So yeah, don't overdo it. What else is going on in the chat? What do you think about double up in Alpine? Where's this come from, Santiago? Where has this question come from? No. that answers that. Points will be updated after qualifying, all of them after the race. I believe they should be updated as we go along. They certainly did that the last season. I see no reason why they shouldn't be updating that as we go along. So we should see after qualifying, hopefully these will all update. 2 seconds. I'm just got to keep an eye on the time. So we've got, we're running out of time here. We've got 25 minutes. I need to have a quick think about, am I definitely set on this? I think DRS boosting, as nice and cheeky as it is to look at Fernando Alonso and think he might get driver of the day and just pip Verstappen, I think because we're at the beginning of the season, there's still a little bit of an unknown. I think I just feel more comfortable going into it, putting it on more of a known quantity. He's the world champion. Red Bull look the best, even though Aston Martin are looking really good. I think it's trying to be potentially slightly too clever to go the DRS boost on Alonso. So I think I'm going to take the boring, safe option of Max Verstappen. Although, like I said, Verstappen's not got a good record round Bahrain. He's DNF'd about half the races he's done round here. He DNF'd last year. He's never won round here. But hey, he's tripled up on my team. Excellent. But yeah, I do think, despite that record, I think Alonso Verstappen is going to be my DRS booster. The only other thing I really have to consider is these final two slots. And like I've said kind of extensively, I think Stroll is the one. Stroll is the one despite his injuries. And the only other option is Guan Yu Zhou versus Logan Sargent. Do I anticipate Logan Sargent to do anything? Like, if I pick Logan Sargent, all I'm picking them here is to avoid DNFs. Guan Yu Zhou had several DNFs last year. The Alfa Romeo reliability wasn't fantastic. But he did also have a lot of overtakes last year. He was quite highly ranked for overtakes, and obviously there's points for overtakes this year. And he could squeak into that top 10 just about. So he could scrape a couple of points for getting like 8th or 9th, for example. He could get a couple of points, on average, we're looking at 2 or 3 points a race probably for overtakes. So, Guan Yu Zhou is probably, like, the ceiling on Guan Yu Zhou is not great. It's probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 points. And if you get that, you're kind of laughing. And Logan Sargent, the ceiling on him is probably like 2 or 3 points in general. So, for the option of getting Guan Yu Zhou and getting those extra sort of 3 or 4 points, is it worth the extra DNF, or what I perceive as the extra DNF risk? I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Because I think this is a genuine question. If Logan Sargent, I've just spotted in there as well. Glenn, welcome. I think if he qualifies 20th, he should make up a couple of points. I think if he qualifies P19, P20, literally any DNF automatically gains him a point, because everyone, he automatically gets shifted up. Whereas Guan Yu Zhou, if he qualifies in that, he might not even get into the top 10. He might qualify in an annoying little position like 11 or 12, get 0 points for that, and then struggle to make strides forward in the race. I'm very tempted at making this change to Logan Sargent. And like I say, he's been on my mind all morning, and I've just been toying with the idea of putting him in there. I think he's a lower DNF risk. I think the ceiling on the other options like Hulkenberg and Guan Yu Zhou are kind of, their ceiling is pretty low. And reliability of the Williams has been good all last season. It was decent. I will say the Williams in terms of overtakes were poor last year, but that's because they had the worst car on the grid, and I think they still have the worst car on the grid. But he's a rookie as well. Like, do I put the trust in the rookie? But in terms of I've already stated earlier that I'm kind of scared of this DNF risk of tripling up on Red Bull and Aston Martin. Having that little bit of extra stability and safety of Logan Sargent could be the move over Guan Yu Zhou. So yeah, I'm very, very tempted. Do people want a new poll? We can get a new poll going. Yeah, let's see that. Max Verstappen's still the favourite there. Let's start another poll. Best budget. What are people saying? We're going to go. Excuse me while I slowly type. Who else we got down there? Hulk. I'm sorry, Yuki, but I'm not going to include you in this. I think those are the three. I think those are the three best options. I think we'll. Why can't I get rid of this option? There we go. Let's ask that. Let's see what you guys think of that. Who do you think? Because I think those are the three best budget options. Who are you going for? Are you going for the safe reliability, avoid DNF in Logan Sargent? Are you going for Guan Yu Zhou because you think he's going to pip into the top 10? Are you going for Hulkenberg because of that qualifying pace and you might pick up a few points, and then if he can hold that position like Magnussen did 12 months ago, he could be seeing Hulkenberg sitting on almost double digits. Who knows? It's very, very tight. And look at the lack of love for Logan Sargent. Look at the lack of love. 4%. What is going on? Isn't that just, I don't know. I feel people love the ceiling. People see the glittery points and they want to go for it. All I'm seeing is the big red DNF and like the fear factor. I guess that's just my mentality. But yeah, let's see what else is going on in the chat. ×2 on Alonso for driver of the day. Yeah, so thick pizza. I've already talked about this quite extensively earlier. That was something I was considering. Because I think Fernando Alonso is likely to get driver of the day. And putting the DRS boost on him means you get 20 points for that. That's pretty insane. But yeah, I do think I don't know. Is it boring to just go with Max Verstappen? It's boring. It's boring, but it's also kind of where I want to be. Logan Sargent, Guan Yu Zhou's for the overtakes. Oh, this is really tight. How much time have I got? How much time have I got, guys? 20 minutes, roughly. Yeah, it looks like Guan Yu Zhou is definitely the favourite pick amongst you chaps and chapesses. 183 votes so far, and a big chunk of you want Guan Yu Zhou, and that's who I had initially. That's who I've had most of the week. That's who I've had in my videos I've been doing. But I don't know, something about it. I woke up this morning and I was just like, is Logan Sargent just better? Is it just safer? But I don't know. He's got a low ceiling. He's also got a low floor. Oh, this is a tight decision. I think this is a tight decision. Like there is, if they both don't DNF, I would guess Logan Sargent's going to score like 2 or 3 points. It's quite nice the fact that the deadline's imminent, and all I'm deciding on is which rubbish budget driver who's going to get me an extra point or two, basically. Go with your gut. Yeah. See, my I don't know. I don't know what my gut's telling me. This is the problem. My gut's telling me that Zhou and Sargent are both fine options. And also Hulkenberg is kind of fine, but I think for me personally, it's between Guan Yu Zhou and Logan Sargent. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about this for a minute or two. But yeah, let's stick with the chat as well. No negative chip. No, I've talked about chips. Not doing any chips. You're welcome to do it, obviously. But have you seen enough from Lance to believe the injury won't hamper? Having watched FP3, I've got more confidence that it won't hamper him. Can we trust him? Yes, I think we can. I think if we throw it back, like I said, I'm going to throw this back to the spreadsheet here again. Like I talked about earlier, for any one of these new people that have just joined the stream, we look at Lance Stroll last year. You see him highlighted here. Look at his score for points gained from positions and gain. We see the same thing with Vettel as well. So the Aston Martin last year, very, very reliable. Didn't qualify super well, but gained those positions up in the race. Stroll was like head and shoulders above everyone. I do think Lance Stroll is trustworthy, despite being a couple of questionable moves, should we say, last year. But yeah, I think Lance Stroll, I trust him. He's not like the most exciting driver, but I do think that he's reliable. Where am I going? I want to go back to my team. But yeah, I think Lance Stroll is fine. You already took some of your risks. Be safe with the DRS. Yeah. Thanks, Glenn. Fun watching you agonize over this. Yeah, I mean, at least I'm only agonizing over Logan Sargent versus Guan Yu Zhou. I'm literally agonizing over, do I want to try to gamble on getting an extra couple of points of Guan Yu Zhou, or do I want to lower my DNF risk, or what I perceive to be a lower DNF risk with Logan Sargent, considering there's no teammate points, or there's no points for getting into Q2 or Q whatever. Then I think the difference between someone like Guan Yu Zhou and Logan Sargent is much, much smaller than last year. So yeah, I'm quite happy to not be stressing over the likes of, do I put Verstappen, do I put Perez, do I go with Leclerc? I'm kind of settled on the rest of the team. I've accepted my fate. If there's a DNF, it's going to hurt me. And I'm going to look like a right fool, but I don't care, because I think this has got the best ceiling. And I guess if I'm going for this team because it's got the best ceiling, and because I think it's going to get me the best budget, I mean, I guess Guan Yu Zhou has also got a slightly better ceiling than Logan Sargent, so maybe I should just stick with Logan Sargent. Maybe I should just stick with Guan Yu Zhou. He was good for overtakes last year. I don't know. And you guys have not helped me one iota. Seriously, best budget, 7% for Logan Sargent, and I'm sat here seriously considering putting him in my team with like 15 minutes left until a deadline, and all of you are just like, no. But 7% of you are maybe sharing my fears and going with him. So yeah. Alpha is faster, but like I said, the point scoring system. Let's have a look at the rules. Look at how they score points. Pole position, 10 points, obviously, all the way down to 10th place, you get a point. The key bit for these budget guys, 11 to 20, you get 0 points. So Guan Yu Zhou, yeah, he's got a faster car. What happens if he qualifies P11 or even P10, he gets a point? What happens if Logan Sargent goes P20? Like, there's 10 points, 10 positions difference or whatever. And how many points do they get for that? 0. They both get 0. So, although Guan Yu Zhou looks better, is it not better to have someone that's going to start in P20 and gain positions up based on DNFs, or maybe potentially just randomly overtake? Maybe the Williams is quicker than we anticipate. I don't think it is, but I think there's less chance of DNF him. And when we look down at the race, Look what happens when you DNF. Big fat -20. Again, the race positions 11 to 20. Guan Yu Zhou, probably the best case scenario for Guan Yu Zhou is like, I'd say the best case is 7th or 8th, and that's maybe even pushing it. Like we're more likely to see him 9th, 10th and below, I would say. So do I want that extra little DNF risk for an extra couple of points and maybe a couple of overtakes? Like I say, I think his ceiling is kind of 4 points. I might be controversial here and just go for Sargent. It might just be controversial. Don't know. Let's go back to the team before. How much time? We've got 14 minutes, guys. 14 minutes. It's time to start locking in, isn't it? Lock and load. Yeah, that poll's not helped me. It's not giving me any confidence. I was hoping everyone would just be like, yeah, we're well on board with you, Tom. Let's all put Sargent in our teams. You have not helped me. You have not helped me at all. What are the other? Is there any other drawback to having Sargent over Guan Yu Zhou? Potentially, if Guan Yu Zhou does get into top 10, like P8, P9, P10 or whatever, then we could see a slight more of an increase in budget for Guan Yu Zhou over Logan Sargent. If Logan Sargent starts P20 and finishes like P18, I mean, yeah, he got a couple of points and didn't DNF, but are we actually going to see any price increase? Like, it can't really get any lower than 4 million, but I think Guan Yu Zhou's maybe got that tiny little bit more ceiling on getting a slightly more budget increase, I would say. So that's, I guess, another factor in Guan Yu Zhou's favour. But yeah, really, like, you don't listen to reason. Well, what is the reason? What is the reason for you putting Guan Yu Zhou ahead of Logan Sargent? I've stated my reasons for Logan Sargent. I think it's a very viable pick. I think he's a fine pick, a safe pick, a boring pick. But when I'm already risking so much on a DNF in my team, do I just want to go Logan Sargent to kind of save face a little bit? I don't know. I don't know. If I go Logan Sargent and Guan Yu Zhou DNFs, I will be the one with the final laugh. But equally so, if Guan Yu Zhou goes and gets a couple of points and Logan Sargent has an engine blow up, then I'll just retire from YouTube, I think. Yay, Jose Ramon Ortiz. Go with Logan. So, finally, someone trying to help me out here and give me some encouragement. Overthinking, yeah, probably am. Like I said, I've been kind of set on this team. I will say, I'd like to think I'm quite good at F1 fantasy. However, I think the one thing that I'm not entirely happy with a lot of the time is my final decision making in the last sort of moments before the deadline. You know, it hurt me quite badly in Abu Dhabi at the end of last year. I had the team which would have set me quite nicely for like a 1k finish, 1 to 1.5k I think I would have finished. And with literally like 10 minutes to go, I was like, nah, throw that out the window. I'm not going to go with the optimal team. I'm going to do something different. I ended up having a bad race in Abu Dhabi and dropped down to like 3,000. So yeah, I would say as a fantasy manager, one thing I would like to improve on this year is that final decision making and being kind of clear in my mind before the deadline, like literally staring me in the face, to actually have that team in mind. And all week I've kind of been on Guan Yu Zhou. It's only really since this morning I've really started considering Logan Sargent more strongly. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna stick with Guan Yu Zhou, but if I stick with Guan Yu Zhou and he DNFs, can we all just like appreciate what could have been if I'd gone with Logan Sargent? Let's end this poll here because I think that's enough of that one. So yeah, how much time we got? We have got 11 minutes. I think this is what I'm going with. I think, like I said, the last decision I've got is Logan Sargent over Guan Yu Zhou, but I think all week kind of my instincts have been telling me Guan Yu Zhou is the better pick. Just hope he doesn't DNF, and you know, as long as he doesn't DNF, he should outscore Sargent. But I don't know. Oh man, hey, my man, this is your final team. I mean, yeah, we've only got 10 minutes left. This is what I'm set at the moment. Like I said, the final decision for me personally is whether I should have Logan Sargent over Guan Yu Zhou. It all comes down to the risk over reward factor. And like I said, DNFs are very painful. The Williams was reliable last year. The Alfa Romeo wasn't quite so reliable with that Ferrari engine in the back of it. Are we going to see more DNFs this year from Guan Yu Zhou? And if so, it's definitely more sensible to go with Logan Sargent. Guan Yu Zhou's got a slightly higher ceiling. This is literally the final decision I have to make. The league code. What's the league code? If you look bottom left on your screen, you can see it there with a yellow little background. Just type that into the website and you'll be able to join. Why not consider Hulk? I've considered everyone. Believe me, when people in the chat who ask me why haven't you considered this driver, why haven't you considered this driver, believe me, there's only 20 drivers, there's only 10 constructors. I've considered everyone, and this is kind of what I've come up with. So yeah, lots of people not convinced by Lance Stroll. Like I said, if you don't want Lance Stroll, then and you're going with a team similar to this, Piastri could be a good option. I think Valtteri Bottas is probably the next best thing. And again, this I've just said Alfa Romeo didn't have the best reliability last year. Bottas is definitely a good driver, and I like him. So having him in my team could also be a good thing. People are just not convinced by Lance Stroll, but I think in that Aston Martin, I think this is it. I think I'm just going to leave my team as it is. Max Verstappen as a DRS boost. Guan Yu Zhou over Logan Sargent. I hope I don't live to regret that decision, but it's kind of what I've been on most of the week. Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you think this is a good team? Are you going for something similar? Are you going to go something completely different? Are you going Ferrari as your constructor, Mercedes as your constructor? I don't know. This, like I said, I've kind of come to make peace with my decision. That's what I want for each deadline. I don't want to go past the deadline and then regret my decision making, regret the final team I went for, thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. I want to go through the deadline and just be like, what will be. And I accept the fact that there is a high risk if there's a DNF in this team that I'm going to get hit hard. But equally, I could get off to an amazing start with this team, and that's kind of where I'm thinking at the moment. I think, like I said already earlier on in the stream, I think it kind of goes against the normal way I play, and I'd go for a more balanced team in general. I'd probably go a Ferrari option in here, and then knock down Lance Stroll to someone else down here, like a Hulkenberg or a Sargent. Let's have a look what that would look like. So yeah, you could go all the way. You could do something like this, and I think this is also fine. But I just think Perez, is I think this is a safer team, but it's just not. It's not what I'm going for. I think this is it. I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. I think that's what I'm going to go with. Got 7 minutes left. All you guys need to be making sure you're locking your teams in. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat. I locked in the same team. Nice. I feel like it's the right choice for Zhou over Sargent. Yeah, like I said, I think Sargent's very tempting for that kind of safety cushion. But it's a bit of a boring pick, and Guan Yu Zhou in general should score better. Gasly instead of Stroll. Yeah. That could. I mean, I can't actually quite afford him. I can't afford Gasly by 0.1 unless I drop down Guan Yu Zhou. So if I did go with the Logan Sargent build, then you could get someone like Pierre Gasly. Although the Alpines haven't been super exciting, I genuinely think Gasly's all the midfield drivers and all the budget drivers in general are kind of just not that exciting this year. So yeah, I'm not sure about this. It does again reduce that DNF factor, and my instincts are telling me, like every sort of fibre of my fantasy manager being is like, don't risk going tripling up on everyone. Like, you're already risking it with tripling up on Red Bull. Do you really want to risk it with the broken wristed Lance Stroll? But yeah, I still think I'm going to go with it. I think this is the team with the biggest ceiling, the biggest chance to increase budget. Give this team a couple of weeks like this perhaps, and as long as they do well, then the budget could be shooting up. We don't know how much the budget's going to go up by, and this kind of reduces my stress levels on how much it's going to go up by on Monday morning or whenever they change the prices. So I think this team has got the best points potential. I think this team has got the best budget potential. I think this team has got probably the worst DNF potential if a DNF happens. So yeah, high risk, high reward. Like I say, not normally the way I play fantasy. So if you're going to copy my team and you want to go for the same thing as this, you have to accept the fact that it's high risk, high reward. You might get hurt badly, but as long as no one DNFs, we should reap the rewards from a team like this. So yeah, ask yourself that question. How badly do you want to grab a really good start to the season? We're risking a terrible start to the season in order to gain a fantastic start to the season, and I'm kind of at peace with that decision. So it's up to you guys now to make your own minds up, because we have got literally 4 or 5 minutes left of the deadline, and I personally am, like I say, kind of at peace with this decision. So yeah, good luck everyone. I'm off to watch the pre-quali. Great stream, Tron. Thank you, Michael. Thanks for joining. Always a pleasure to have you. Yeah, I'll be going off and watching quali in a minute as well. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's literally what four minutes left. So if anyone's got any last minute questions, I have personally settled on this team. I am not changing my team anymore. I'm not changing my mind. I would massively regret right at this moment making a last minute change, and it all goes pear shaped because of that last minute change. I would never forgive myself. Like I said, if I have a weakness in terms of being an F1 fantasy manager, I think it's that final decision making and making those last minute changes on a bit of a whim or a bit of an adrenaline rush. I don't want to do that this season. I want to be nice and controlled with my team selection. I've been pretty hot on this team most of the week. I trust Lance Stroll, even though he's had those injuries to his wrist and he looked a bit troubled by it yesterday in FP2. I'm going to put my trust in him, and I'm going to put my trust in this team, and this is what I'm going with. So yeah, like I say, any last minute questions I'm happy to answer, but otherwise, thank you very much for everyone tuning in. Chips, no. I'm going to do quick fire, fly through the chat. Logan isn't low risk at all. I think wheel to wheel battling is different ball game. Your first race, yeah. So he might be tentative. Well, he might be tentative, so he might give extra space. So he might be extra safe, Drizzy. He might be, giving everyone that extra bit of space on the track and therefore staying out. He might be even more determined just to finish the race. Like, no one expects anything from Logan Sargent. Everyone expects him to finish like P20. So, he's got nothing to lose. He as long as he finishes the race, he should be quite happy. But yeah. Would you say Gasly and Hulk or Gasly and Sargent? Me personally, I'm not completely sold on Hulkenberg, although I think he could do well. Depends if you want to go kind of the safe option, like I've been saying, Sargent, or if you want to go a bit more of a risk in Hulkenberg. Ferrari exposure, better to have Leclerc or them as constructors. It depends on the rest of your team. Excuse me. It completely depends on the rest of your team. Like, I've got two teams here. I've got the Leclerc build here and the Ferrari build here. And I like both of them. It completely depends on your pretty similar teams, to be honest. I think probably the Ferrari constructor build, because they're I'm not sure actually. I'm actually not sure, because they get more points, but then if you go with this build, you get the Aston Martin points. So yeah, I'm not sure. Let me just quickly check the time. There is 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. I think this is my team. And yeah, let's get the season started. Please, no DNFs. Please, no DNFs. Please, sing with me, chant with me. Everyone chant. Please, no DNFs. I chose Hulk over Zhou last minute. Oh, last minute. Ouch. Bottas or Gasly or Piastri, don't want to risk Lance. Oh, lots of people scared of Lance. It's fine. What's the worst that can happen? Come on. I'm going to go with Lance Stroll. Come join me in the Stroll party. It's just the first race, don't worry. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That's a very good point there from Mr. Ortiz. If it does go pear-shaped, so be it. It's just a game. Like, it's not the end of the world. Unless potentially people have got money tied up in various leagues, probably. But yeah, at the end of the day, for me, it's just a game. It's fun. Obviously, I put a lot of effort into it and try and pick the best team I possibly can. But it's just a game. Let's have some fun. I'm going to trust in Aston Martin. I'm going to trust in Red Bull. Guan Yu Zhou, don't do me dirty over Logan Sargent. So yeah, this is the team, and I think that pretty much sums up. I think the deadline is just about hitting. It's like less than a minute anyway. So I guess we're going to wrap it up there and go watch some qualifying. I'll just check the chat last minute for any last minute questions or anything. No risk reward. I'm in the same mindset as you. Yeah, let's do it, Drizzy. Let's do it. We're going in. The triple up. Let's do it. Team locked in. Thanks for all the feedback. Keep it up. Thank you very much. It's not a game. We want the paddock passes. Yeah. Yeah. You and like 2 million other people probably. But yeah. What's your favourite pizza? Fair enough. Anything with some spicy meat on it, probably. Yeah. Spicy pepperoni, somewhere along those lines. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. So yeah, I think we'll go watch some qualifying. Enjoy it. Try not to stress out too much. Try not to stress out too much during the Grand Prix tomorrow. I will be clenching my bottom quite a lot when the lights go out. Hoping that all my boys make it through safely. Hope all your boys, whoever they are in your team, make it through safely as well. Like I say, my name is Tom. I do these streams occasionally, and I do videos for each and every race through the 2023 season. Oh wow, that's it. I think that's it. My screen's just refreshed and we're locked in. We're into qualifying. Wow, it's updated like instantly. Nice. So there we go. Deadline has passed. Thank you very much for everyone. and I'll catch you probably in a week or so's time ahead of the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix for another team selection video. So like I say, everyone enjoy quali, enjoy the race, try not to stress. If it all goes pear-shaped, then it goes pear-shaped. It's just a game, and just try and enjoy it. Just try and enjoy it. If it goes pear-shaped, just forget about fantasy and just enjoy the F1, because it's a fantastic sport, and it's really exciting that it's back. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. I'm gonna sign off now. Yeah, enjoy. See you later. Good luck.